Why don't the religious ever care about reality? Every time we point out what they're doing wrong, they rationalize their way back to, but I really want to believe it. Well, it doesn't matter, and today's article is just going to prove how true that is. So let's go take a look. One last time into the breach, my friends, as we address the third and final article from Cameron Bertuzzi, and why, I don't even think he's worth pissing on if he was on fire. This guy, he's just not worth anything. He isn't even trying to address the outsider's test for faith. He's just desperately looking for a way to get home to his comforting beliefs, because reality is completely irrelevant to him. He is not looking for anything intelligent. He only wants to coddle his own childish fifis. Yeah, big surprise there. So let's get back to it, shall we? So, we've been through 2 parts so far, and honestly, I can't say that I am at all impressed. Granted, I didn't really think I would be, because this is Cameron we're talking about, and Cameron has never really impressed me in anything. Ever. I'm still going to give him a chance though, but what I think he's doing here is just cherry picking things from John Loftus, because honestly, I've had some problems with those as well. And then running around with the goalposts as the religious often do. So let's jump into the last part and see if he manages to redeem himself. And I'm not really holding my breath, are you? Again, as in the last 2 parts, we're just jumping past all his introductory stuff, but I think it's just going to go over what he's already done, and we've already been there and seen that, so why bother? So we're going to pick it up at Reformed Epistemology. In his work, Alvin Plantinga distinguishes between de jure and de facto objections to Christian beliefs. De facto objections are aimed at the existence of God. They aim to show that Christianity is false. De jure objections, on the other hand, are aimed at believers and their beliefs. These objections seek to show that Christian beliefs are unreasonable, unjustified, and unwarranted. Now, I don't really have any respect for Plantinga, for the same reasons I don't have respect for pretty much any religious apologist. He just wants to believe too. This isn't an honest evaluation of the outsider's test for faith, and I guess we shouldn't expect it to be. I mean, we can hope, but that's about it, and they never managed to come up to our expectations. His whole point here is, well, you can't prove Christianity is wrong, so you shouldn't assume that Christianity is wrong. No, but you can't prove Christianity is right either, so you shouldn't assume it's right. Yet that's all he's doing, right? This is why faith needs to be thrown completely out the window. What you want to be true means absolutely nothing. Only what conforms to the evidence in objective reality does. And they have no evidence for that, do they? And that's really the problem when talking to the religious, and why I focus so much on the actual existence of a God. Because everything else they believe is based on that bold assumption. If there is no God, then every religion just falls apart. There's no reason to talk about it beyond, where's your evidence for your God? Because if they don't have that, then everything else can be safely thrown away. And they don't like that very much, do they? So let's just keep going. Here is an example of a de jure objection to Christian belief. 1. It is rational to believe in Christianity only on the basis of a good argument. 2. There are no good arguments for Christianity. 3. Therefore, it is not rational to believe in Christianity. But isn't that true, though? Now, where the religious are going to get hung up is premise 2, because they are emotionally predisposed to think that Christianity is true. They are predisposed to believe based on bad arguments, which they will always think are good. So how many of them are going to bring up, say, Kalam, which is complete garbage, or Pascal's wager, which is also garbage, or any of the other emotionally comforting philosophical arguments that boil down to, well, I don't get it, therefore God. It's all logical fallacies end to end. Yet they like these arguments because they get them where they want to go. They're not actually trying to argue their way to God. They start with God, and then they're trying to loop around in a circle to get back to God. But that's a bad way to think about things because it's completely irrational. This is why, as I say in pretty much every video, that you can't start with your conclusion just because you really like the conclusion. You have to reach that conclusion and prove with evidence that it is demonstrably true. They aren't even trying to do that. They don't care about doing that. They just want their childish fifis coddled. Rational people don't engage in blind faith. So this is all just nonsense. Plantinga responds to this objection by challenging premise 1. He argues that 1 is false because belief in Christianity can be properly basic. A belief is basic when it is not held on the basis of any argument, which makes it bullshit, but, there you go. However, not every basic belief is properly basic. Properly basic beliefs are basic beliefs that are rational for a person to hold. No one is holding the basic belief that your next gamble at the casino will make you a millionaire. On the other hand, when I jam my finger in a car door and believe that I feel pain, this belief is both basic and properly basic. Yeah, but it isn't. This is just philosophical masturbation. I believe because I want to believe because I want to believe. But you don't get to just declare your beliefs rational because you want them to be rational. They actually have to qualify for rationality. And that's why we take this out of an individual's hands and say, here's how we are as a group, not necessarily as a species, but as a group, this is how we're going to define rationality. And they don't want to do that, do they? Because the whole example there just shows how little he understands it. If your brain interprets pain, then this is just your brain interpreting pain. Is that pain real? Maybe, depending on external factors. If you have a dream and in that dream you feel pain, then did you actually feel pain? No, you didn't. Your nerve endings were not damaged in any way. You can be hypnotized into thinking that you feel pain if you're open to that kind of thing. Does that mean that you actually felt pain? No. But we can hook you up to a machine and we can measure the responses of your nerve endings, and we know if you're actually feeling pain, regardless of how your brain might interpret it. Because pain is defined in a way that is not open to, well, I just believe it. Because that's stupid. This is what happens when you don't think beyond a very surface level, which for most religious people, when it comes to their religious beliefs, they just don't. Here's where it gets interesting. In his work, Plantinga argues that de jure objections reduce to de facto objections. This is because if Christianity is true, there's that if again, but if Christianity is true, then it's likely that Christian belief is properly basic, and second, if Christianity is false, then it's likely that Christian belief is not properly basic. If this is right, then the answer to whether Christian belief is properly basic will depend on whether Christianity is true or false. In other words, the epistemological question is not separate from the metaphysical question. If is not because. I'm sorry, you people need to stop doing that. I don't care about your ifs, I care about your evidence. Come back with that, screw this if crap. Christianity is true if and only if you can demonstrate that Christianity is true. Get on that. This is just a Christian trying to talk himself into believing it. Well, it could be, maybe, sort of, possibly. Yeah, but none of that matters. Christianity is true. Any proposition is true if and only if it actually is. The possibility doesn't matter. Only the actuality does. And this is why they just assume that if Christianity is true, that means that it actually is, because they really want it to be. They don't have to go through any of those annoying steps in the middle where they actually prove that it's so. They're not really concerned about the actuality, only the emotional impact that the belief has on their psyche. Well, sorry, but that's just stupid. Anybody can do that with anything. If invisible, intangible, universe-creating pixies are real, you get the picture. But that doesn't make them real. The only time that you should believe that they are real, that anything is real, is when they have been objectively justified as being real. And the same thing goes for Christianity. These are just the bullshit doublespeak lies that they tell each other so they can feel good about themselves. And that is incredibly dumb. The nature of Christian beliefs. His third skeptical consideration says that the nature of Christian beliefs warrants skepticism. Now, it's not immediately obvious what Loftus means by the nature of Christian beliefs. What precisely about Christian beliefs warrants skepticism? Part of me wants to think he sort of ran out of things to say and was merely summarizing his first 2 points. Another part thinks that maybe he's trying to say that Christian belief is really complex or affirms things that he finds implausible. For example, belief in God. And so Christian belief ought to be met with skepticism. Let's take this second interpretation. I'm sorry, but everything warrants skepticism. Everything. I don't care about the nature of Christian beliefs or anything else. Any claim made about anything in the real world warrants skepticism. Absolutely anything. Here I figure, and I could be wrong, but I figure that he's going to try to make a case that Christianity is somehow special. Something like that. I've seen those before. And no, sorry, you're wrong. Christianity isn't special. One standard, that's it. There is no nature of Christian beliefs because it's all just made up. You cannot show that there is a single nature of Christian beliefs. 45,000 distinct sects and all that. How is that any different than the nature of Hindu beliefs? It's all just made up. So no, I'm not going to let him go down that road either without criticism. But let's see if I was right. Let's see what else he has to say. Suppose that, for whatever reason, Christian belief is super unlikely. Let's assume this is true for the sake of argument, because he doesn't want to admit that it's true, but whatever. Does it follow that Christian belief is unjustified? Well, if Reformed epistemology is true, then no, it doesn't necessarily follow. Likelihood has absolutely nothing to do with truth. What is the least likely religion ever? Something that was believed by one person for, say, 1 second in the entirety of human history, in the entirety of the history of the universe. How likely is that? I'm sure it must have happened at least once, right? So, does that entirely unlikely event have anything at all to do with it being factually correct? No, of course not. Again, he returns to if is because. But it's never, ever, ever because. If is if, and because is because. In order for it to become because, it has to be demonstrated to be actually true. How about you get on that, Cameron? Because I'm not going to take your if seriously until they legitimately become becauses. Let me know when you've done that, because otherwise you are just wasting everybody's time. Here's an analogy. The world around us is highly complex. Scientists have estimated that there are roughly 10 to the 80th fundamental particles in our universe. These particles all obey a variety of physical laws, act in certain ways, occupy different regions of space-time, and so on. Does this mean that, unless we have really good arguments and evidence, that we aren't justified in believing that the universe is real? Ask yourself, do you have good arguments and evidence that you aren't in the Matrix or a brain sitting in a vat of chemicals? Of course we can be justified, because here we are. Now, do we have to make a couple of assumptions, things that we just agree are true because otherwise we're in trouble? We can never be absolutely 100% certain that we are here, but that's because we can never be absolutely 100% certain of anything. At all. Ever. The problem of heart solipsism can never be solved, at least nobody's ever come up with a method yet, but once we make that assumption, then everything else falls into place with the evidence that we have at hand. Absolutely everyone, including Cameron, agrees that we're really here, because if you don't, then all conversation stops. In fact, if you don't agree, then you stop, because logically, if you're not real, if nothing you see around you is real, if it's all just an illusion, why are you eating, since food isn't real? And if you don't eat, you die and we all go on without you. This is why this is all so stupid, because Cameron doesn't understand the logical implications of what he's asking. He doesn't think about stuff. He just really wants to believe. If all of humanity, every last one of us, accepted solipsism and the logical implications thereof, then we as a species would go extinct. No food, no breathing, no reproduction, end of the human species, that's it. In fact, there's no reason not to walk off a cliff, since cliffs aren't real and neither are you. Therefore, we all just behave as if there is a real world. Even the people who profess solipsism, they all behave as if the world is real, and they come up with the same kind of excuses that Cameron does for his silly beliefs, because deep down inside, I think they know that it's all nonsense. You couldn't have Christianity if you didn't, because that's how the world works. You couldn't have anything if you didn't. So this is really, really stupid. And why am I not surprised it comes from a theist? Nobody really should be. Here's the point. If Christianity is true, then God plays a causal role in the formation of Christian beliefs. However, Christianity is only irrational or unjustified if God doesn't play a causal role in the process. In other words, Christianity is irrational only if Christianity is false. As with belief in the eternal world, argumentation isn't always necessary. But he's still talking about ifs, isn't he? He's not talking about becauses. I will concern myself if God exists once you have provided convincing evidence that God exists and not one moment before. But here's where he, and to be fair, most apologists go wrong. Belief in Christianity is irrational whether it's true or not. It's not the truth of the proposition that makes it rational. It's the way that you get there that determines whether it's rational or not. And there is nothing in the methodology that is rational at all. So let's take a non-religious subject. If, prior to Max Planck suggesting that radiation was quantized, which is where Einstein and a few others got the idea back in 1900, but if before that some random Joe Blow had said, "I have faith that there are quantum particles," he would have been irrational, even if ultimately he had turned out to be right. It's the methodology, the way that you actually get there, that makes you rational or not. The religious are not using anything remotely rational in their epistemology. They just really want to believe it, and that simply isn't good enough. Loftus's fourth and fifth considerations have to do with belief origins. The question of origins, at least with respect to religious belief, falls under the jurisdiction of cognitive science of religion, CSR. It's undeniable that religious beliefs are widespread, even natural. Most cultures throughout the centuries have believed in God or gods. It's safe to say that religious belief is both natural, biologically, and normal, statistically. But why is this? But here's the thing, and I don't think I should have to say this, but I guess I do. Widespread doesn't mean true. This is just an appeal to popularity, argumentum ad populum, which is, of course, a logical fallacy. This is where the religious love to run when they get backed into a corner. But lots of people believe in gods. So what? Lots of people used to believe the earth was flat. Some still do. That doesn't make it true, though. The Catholic Church murdered scientists and held them captive because they said that the earth wasn't the center of the universe. And those scientists were right. The Church was wrong. What else is new? That's why these articles have been stuffed full of, "But what if God is real?" without any evidence that God is actually real. Because Cameron, just like about every other theist out there, doesn't care if what he believes is true. He has faith, and because I think he understands that the non-religious aren't impressed by his faith, and they shouldn't be, then he just makes a continual appeal to what if. But what if doesn't matter, does it? It's just another example of running around the field with the goalposts because he can't actually demonstrate that his beliefs and his faith are true. Because he just doesn't care. Is anyone at all surprised? Let me know down in the comments if you are, but I don't think I'm going to see anybody who does. The standard view in CSR is that religious belief is a byproduct of a cognitive mechanism known as the Hyperactive Agent Detection Device, HADD. When you're home alone at night and you hear a sound, chances are you've ascribed agency to that sound. Is it a burglar out to get me? Maybe that sound was a ghost. That is the HADD at work. Evolutionarily, we can see why HADD would be an adaptive trait to have. For example, it would aid in avoiding predators. The standard view in CSR is that religious belief originates, at least in part, from an overactive agency detection device. We just sort of naturally attribute agency to everything, including the universe. And again, where is the actual truth in any of this? Yes, we understand that people's biological makeup makes them see things that aren't there, or makes them attribute things to things that aren't there, and you'd think that Cameron would figure this out and go, well, just because I'm attributing things to God, that doesn't mean God is real. Now, normal people would do that, but, Cameron can't do that. How does any of this actually support your religious beliefs? And this is where we can see that he doesn't remotely care if any of it's true because he understands the biological underpinnings and he just believes anyhow. And I've seen this a lot and it always leaves me scratching my head. I have seen tons of theists who will explain in detail why people believe in gods, what biological mechanisms there are for them to believe in gods, and then bizarrely use that as a reason why it's good to believe in gods. Well, how the hell did you get to that? It's the same kind of stupidity where people will say that, well, I just took a bunch of drugs, I broke my brain, and I saw colors and shit that wasn't there, and therefore God is real. What? What in the hell is wrong with you? You just showed that all the things that you experienced weren't real. They were just delusions in your head caused by fucking with your brain chemistry. You understand that you caused your brain to misfire. What the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
But see, that's not how reality works. Your opinions are meaningless when it comes to the facts. They exist or they don't. They're real or they're not. Your fifis don't mean a damn thing. Grow up already. You're just making an even bigger fool of yourself every time you open your mouth. A number of atheists, Dawkins, Dennett, etc., take this information and say that religious belief is therefore irrational or unjustified. Because it's true, as I've shown once again. Here's another problem the religious have, and I think we've all seen this one before. They think that until someone proves that their beliefs are wrong, that they are automatically correct. But that's not how that works. This is why they don't comprehend the burden of proof, and they don't care. They just really want to believe it, and because they believe it, because it makes them feel good, because it gives them that dopamine shot in the head, that must make it true, right? This is the biggest problem, and where I doubt we'll ever get the religious, Christians or otherwise, to deal with the actual reality that they live in. It's still a massive problem for them. Your fifis just don't matter. The facts are the facts, feelings be damned. How reality makes you feel is completely irrelevant. But they don't care about that one bit, do they? They're only in it for the comfort, and if they have to deny actual reality to get their fifis stroked, well, they'll just do that in a heartbeat. This is why I've always said that I want to know what's really going on, whether it makes me happy or not. I don't care how I feel about the facts. I just want to know the facts. If the world was going to end tomorrow, I want to know, even if there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. If there's an evil God out there that's just going to torture everybody for all eternity no matter what you do, I want to know that. It's the knowledge that matters, not my feelings. I could be miserable for the rest of my life, but I still want to know. And the religious don't. Most people don't. And that's why most people out there are just imbeciles. But, let's just keep going. But this is a mistake. On Christianity, Christian belief is not purely the result of a cognitive mechanism, even if it is in part. As mentioned previously, God plays a causal role in the production of Christian beliefs. See here for more, but we're not going to do that. Without already knowing that Christianity is false, we don't know that Christian belief is irrational or justified. But you're just wrong. You are just asserting that God exists. You haven't demonstrated it. You haven't done anything. You just believe. I mean, just apply that to anything else. Well, I believe that our alien overlords are coming and that they have been carefully crafting our evolution since the very beginning for their own sinister purposes. Yeah, but that doesn't make any of that true, does it? I just had this exact conversation with a Christian. I kind of talked about it a little bit in the comments in the video back when it was happening, but he said the Bible is evidence for God. So I asked if the Quran was evidence for Allah or the Vedas were evidence for Krishna, and he said no, it's only the Bible because that's what he believes. The amount of stupidity in these people is just palpable. What the hell's wrong with them? Evidence? Like, it would be nice if you had any, but that's too much to ask, isn't it? The sixth and final consideration from Loftus has to do with the kinds of evidence that can be used to decide between different faith traditions. Loftus seems to suggest that without propositional evidence, we have no way of deciding which religion is correct. Notice that this is basically just the de jure objection that I've given above in the section on Reformed epistemology. Now, this is just Cameron desperately trying to defend his own faith. This is why every single discussion with a theist tends to go sideways, because they will agree that evidence matters for everything else, except their religion. Or they will have an entirely different standard for evidence for everything else, except their religion. This is kind of what that discussion I was talking about a minute ago was doing. Well, my beliefs are true because I want them to be true. Everybody else is wrong because they don't agree with me. My feelings are the only arbiter of truth because I'm after emotional comfort. So there. But that's utterly childish. But that's what a lot of these people are. Children. They have never grown up and become rational adults. They only care about their feelings. They don't give a crap about objective fact. If I can tell myself a comforting story in my head, well, that just means it's all got to be true, right? No, fuck you. That's why we're talking about objective truth. Things that exist entirely beyond you and your silly imaginary tales. If I throw you out of an airplane without a parachute, you're going to fall and die. Well, I mean, 99.999 continuing % of the time, since there are a very, very small number of people who have survived it, mostly by landing in trees, things like that, and they get really messed up. But that's really beside the point. You can't just wish gravity away because it's an uncomfortable truth that you just don't want to be real. You are going to go splat, even if you do live, but you're still going to get really messed up falling. If there is a God, and that's what you people believe, then it has to be that kind of real. If you can't show that it's true, then you shouldn't believe it. And that's how basic rationality works. But of course, that's not what the religious are after, are they? They just want to be comforted, and if they have to believe undemonstrated bullshit to get that kind of comfort, well, they'll do it because they're just idiots. Cameron is showing that right here. But I've made up a comforting story. Yeah, fuck off, Cameron. You are a moron. Grow the hell up. Then he just repeats the same failed syllogism that we already handled above, so we're not going to go into that again. He continues, Since I've already given Plantinga's response to this argument, I'll briefly summarize another approach. The Christian could deny premise 2, which is what I said they would do. She could argue that Christianity in particular has very good arguments in defense of this claim. She might appeal to a cumulative case starting with cosmological arguments all the way to Bayesian-type arguments for Jesus' resurrection. I've argued for both of these in my own work. See the links, which we're not going to look at. But here's the thing. Nobody cares about the odds. We care about the demonstrable facts. If you are in a murder trial and someone says, well, the butler did it. I mean, who else could have done it? That doesn't mean the butler done it. You have to have actual evidence supporting that contention. Or at least you should. Actual justice shouldn't be left in the hands of 12 people who are not smart enough to get out of jury duty. But that's neither here nor there. This is also a major problem that the religious have because they only care about what makes them happy, not what is actually true. And there's lots and lots of examples for that. I'm sure we can all come up with a couple of those in our own interactions with the religious. But I really want it to be true. That doesn't matter. Just because you really like the conclusion, that doesn't make the conclusion true. But it sounds good to me. Yeah, fuck off. Because this is exactly what happens when you apply your own wishes and dreams and fifis to the mix. You wind up believing things for no good, rational, evidence-based reason. Loftus is right. A Christian can rationalize their way to anything that they want because they aren't actually using reason, logic, or critical thinking. And this goes for a lot of people out there. The people running around in the woods looking for Bigfoot, they're doing the same thing. Well, that hole in the ground looks kind of like a footprint, so it's got to be one. Therefore, Bigfoot. Same thing. Not therefore Bigfoot. There's a hole in the ground that looks like a footprint. Or even there is a footprint. But you can't just arbitrarily assign it to Bigfoot any more than the religious can just arbitrarily assign things to God. That's not how that works. Lots of people have a serious problem taking a giant step backwards from their beliefs and trying to figure out what's actually going on because they don't care what's actually going on. They just want to believe. And if you're looking for a way to reach a conclusion, whether it's true or not, you will find a way, even if that way is complete nonsense. That's the problem with the religious, although, as we all know, it applies to a lot of other people too, because humans are dumb, and I really wish they'd stop proving it. So it seems to me that both premises of this argument are dubious. There's no good reason to accept either one. Because you don't want to. Cameron has just proven that he's the problem. Now, like I said at the beginning, I'm not wild about how this was presented by Loftus. I think the entire outsider's test for faith can be summed up in one point. Although, I guess that makes it hard to write a book about it, so it is what it is. Treat your religion the same way that you treat everyone else's. Have one standard. If your religion doesn't stand out using that one standard, then you shouldn't believe your religion either. Care about the objective truth, which I think it's clear most humans simply don't. Most people are just trying to get by with as much comfort and dopamine hits in the head as they can get. And that's dumb, but it's true. I have no interest in dealing with people like that. And that's maybe why I'm just getting tired with dealing with most theists, because it's like talking to a brick wall, although the bricks are probably smarter. None of them care if what they believe is actually true. It just feels good to believe it, and that shouldn't be enough for anybody with a brain. And it's sad that so few theists actually seem to have one that works. Final thoughts. We've come to the end of my analysis of the outsider's test for faith. It's apparent that none of Loftus's considerations actually warrant skepticism. Epistemic disagreement doesn't. Geographical location doesn't. Belief origins doesn't. That should be don't, but the evidence doesn't. Maybe Loftus has a good reason to be skeptical about Christianity, but those reasons are not included in his infamous outsider's test for faith. And this is just Cameron not understanding all the problems with his own religion. Then again, he's not after demonstrable truth, is he? If he was, then he'd realize that adopting the common religion from the place that you were born, the religion that you were likely indoctrinated with from childhood, That doesn't make any of it true, but as I said, he's not after truth, he's just after comfort. The outsider's test for faith aims to make that clear, but Cameron isn't listening. None of them are. He just wants to keep believing what makes him feel good, and he can't tell the difference between actual rationality and just baldly rationalizing. All Cameron has proven here is that he has no interest in reality, and that's hardly a surprise. I could have told you that before we started. Cameron doesn't have the brain power to take that giant step back, get out of his comfort zone, confront reality as it actually is, and follow the evidence that we have where it actually leads. No, he just really wants to believe, and really wanting to believe is kind of dumb. And as I said, it just shows that he's an irrational idiot. And as I said, it's not exactly a surprise, is it? So what did you think of all of this? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think that Cameron made any halfway decent points? I mean, even one. Now, I don't expect to see anyone thinking so, but I'd love to see it if someone did. This is just running around with the goalposts and trying desperately to get back to where he wants to go. And that's just not impressive at all, is it? Most theists don't want to address the outsider's test for faith because I don't think they can do it intelligently. Certainly Cameron couldn't, but I'd love to see someone else actually give it a try. And if anybody out there comes up with an example that they want me to take a look at, by all means, send it my way. Most of these people are only pandering to their own echo chamber, and I'm not impressed with that, but hey, I'd like to see an actual serious attempt. Unfortunately, we're not going to see that because these people are dumb. But then again, consider the source of the stupidity. They're all believing crap that can't be independently, evidentially, or rationally defended. So, big surprise there.